did Jesus tell Peter? We told him a lot, but right? Peter, we talked a lot about Peter. We're going to keep talking about Peter. So let's go to chapter 16 and pick up and do just a quick review. In 16:18, I took a little trip. That's where we were. And Jesus said, I say to you, Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. And I will give you, this is where we're going to start, and I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Right there is probably 2 or 3 sermons that's probably over my head. But what is happening here? Matthew 16, 18 through 20. So that's where we are. So what I want you to do this morning, first off, is put your Peter shoes on. And Jesus just told you that on this rock I will build my church. Okay, well, first of all, what does that mean to you? You're Peter. You're like, oh, okay, good. I like that. But what? Okay, I like it. But what do you think Peter thought it meant? I mean, knowing Peter. Okay? Because what I want to do is set the stage for this transfiguration that's coming up. That's our lesson. And also try to get the why behind God, Jesus, is picking the inner circle, Peter, James, and John. Oh, and they show up on the mountain, and guess who pops up with them? Who's the 2 people that pop up with them at the transfiguration? Moses and Elijah. Why? So there's so much right here just in a half a page. But I want to get you thinking about, and all this is going to lead to the answer, which means is, what is our story? If I'm going to, and this is going to be your homework for next week. And I don't think I'm here next week. Oh, I am here next week. Okay, good then. So next week, I want you to tell me your story of salvation to an unbeliever. Remember, right here, you're Peter. You're going to act just like Peter. Like, okay, I think all this, I know all this, but I'm confused. But we need to get it. So that's the way I want you to think. Okay, now in verse 19, it says, and I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. This is really, really deep stuff, and I can't really do it justice, but I'll just give you a brief overview. What that means is that it was an old Jewish term, meaning that, let's just take the church here, for example. The church has certain rules and bylaws, and we don't, this church, Independent Baptist, there's certain things that we do not allow or we bind, meaning that's unlawful. You're not going to do that here. But then there's other things that we do that are loosed that we allow. What Jesus is saying here is, to put in place those that are lawful or unlawful. That's about as good as I could get. There's so much more to it. So now Peter's shoes, you're in Peter's shoes, it's even more, So, Peter and the disciples, apostles, they had the power to heal. But we're going to see here later that they missed a few. And Jesus said, because of your faith. We'll see that. Okay, so that's kind of where we are. So let's start with 21. David, you want to read, we're in chapter 16, read 21 through, 1 through 26. Now, so before you start though, so He just told Peter, what did he tell him? I'm going to build a church on you on the rock. But Jesus is now saying, look, I'm going to go away. Oh man, you just popped all the balloons and it's getting worse, right? You understand? So go ahead, David. All right, let's stop right there. Yeah. So, okay. So Peter thinks he's got it. He's getting it. He's going to, we're going to build a church on a rock. But now Jesus said, I'm going away. And the way I'm going to go away is they're going to kill me. They're going to crucify me. But 3 days later, I'm going to rise again. None of that could make sense to Peter, I don't think. It wouldn't make sense to me. That's right. That's right. Which is probably normal, right? I think any normal person would say that. But Jesus rebukes him right here. And it's a pretty hard rebuke. It doesn't, if you look at the commentaries and look at the Greek words, it's pretty tough. In 23, he says, "Get behind me, Satan." That's pretty rough talk right there, isn't it? So he says, "You are an offense to me." Why? For you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men. So here again, he's telling Peter, look, you got to quit thinking like Peter, and you got to listen. You got to listen. And I think this whole lesson for me is about, Keith, can you listen? Can you get still and listen, to what's true? Not what you think, A lot of times when I think about, getting even or judging someone, why am I judging someone? Nobody put me in charge, but I want to do that. I think that's normal or natural, but you got to push it away and think of things of God, not of men. So that hit me pretty hard there. All right, David, keep going. Yeah, I think that's good for now. Thanks. Let's hold your place there. Let's go back to Matthew 10:38. And what's amazing is all through the Bible, the theme is not broken in any way. 10:38. Patrick, if you'll read that. I guess read 38, 39. So what do you think that means, take up the cross? I'll just tell you what I thought it meant. It probably means everything, I guess. But, you actually have to pick up the cross, that burden, and go with it and carry it with you. What do you think it means? What is he implying here to Peter? And his disciples, not just Peter, but the disciples. Yeah, that's right. And he wants a commitment out of them. A commitment all the way to death. The cross is death. Yeah, that's true. Good point. Yeah, I get. Yeah. Yeah, maybe so. I didn't never thought of it that way, but you're right. You're right. All right, we'll keep going because we're getting towards. I wanted to do the background for the transfiguration. So, who would like to read 27 through 28? Matthew, 16. Yeah, back to 16, sorry. 27, 28. Any other new readers? Anybody? Miss Teresa? Yes, ma'am. Okay, if you didn't keep reading on, you would be pretty perplexed about what this says. Without reading on, what would you think? You probably wouldn't know. I didn't know. So we'll keep reading. So that last few words, see the Son of Man coming in His kingdom. And what we think about here is not just I get the keys to heaven and I get to see the kingdom. It's more about, the Greek word is splendor. Who has seen God face to face? Well, yeah, you're right. No one could see His face, but who got in front of Him? So we got Moses in the burning bush, yeah, and Elijah. So it's kind of important because as we see in the Transfiguration, we're going to see Moses and Elijah show up with Peter, James, and John, the inner circle. So let's keep going. Now we're going to the Transfiguration. Who would like to read 17? We're in chapter 17 and read all the way to 13. Matthew 17. We're in Matthew 17. We're at the Transfiguration. And here's another thing. Why? I don't know. I didn't look this up, but I'll ask you. Every time we have where Jesus gets in front of God, shows Himself, like at the burning bush, Elijah, here now in the Transfiguration. Why are we on a mountain? Why can't we just do it out there on the patio or by the pool or by the lake? I don't know. But it's always on a mountain. Why do you think that is? Huh? That's true. Okay. Peace. Solitude. I like that. Good answer. Yeah, probably so. Okay. All right, who's going to read? You got it? All right. 17. We're going to read 1 through 13. Yeah, good. Man, there's a lot in here. Oh my gosh. It's like maybe weeks of. So let's just pick it back up at 17. So before 17, in verse 28, chapter 16, 28, the last scripture there, it says, "Surely I say to you, there are some standing here," meaning some, who's he talking to? Which disciples? Peter, James, and John. He said, "Surely, Peter, James, and John, who are standing here, shall not taste death." In other words, they're not going to die until what? Until they actually see God's splendor. Of course, it says, Son of Man coming in his kingdom. But that's the Greek word is saying in all his splendor. And later on you see that when God, it's one thing when Jesus' face shone like the sun, but when God spoke, and what did he say to Peter? Listen. He says, hear me. But so that's why I wanted to spend so much time about Peter and us. And I think we're just like Peter, right? We know these things, and we know our salvation is good and it's true. But how do I tell others? What's the real message to the unbeliever? All right, so chapter 17. So 6 days later, Peter, James, and John, the inner circle, Jesus took them up on the high mountain. And there he was transfigured before them, and his face was, shining and bright. And look who shows up, Elijah and Moses. So that's a story in itself. Why Elijah and why Moses? So what do we know about Moses? Let's just start with him. What do we know about Moses? Tell me what you know about him. Yeah, so for 40 years he led the people. But what happened at the end? He didn't get to go in. Struck the rock. People were complaining, and God told him to speak to the rock, not strike it. Earlier, he did tell him to strike it, and he did. It worked fine. Got water out of the rock. Second time, he told Peter to speak to it. Moses speak to it. And instead, out of anguish or being tired or stressed, he hit it with the staff or whatever he had there. He had enough. But you need to read that. I would study that because, is it just because he struck the rock? That's why he's not getting to go into Canaan? Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter to me. But there's a lot of commentaries that says that Moses had to bring him to the border of Canaan and die here, as Jesus came and died for our sins so we could get salvation. So some say that's why he had to die before going in, so the people could go in for the sacrifice. Is symbolic. Doesn't really matter, but there is something interesting about Moses. Get my notes because I'm not even using them, but can't find it. I wrote it down. Oh, there it is, Jude. Okay, let's go to Jude 1:9. Jude. Yes, go ahead. No, that what? Yeah. All I know is very simple: is that you know John was the fourth coming, to tell of salvation for Jesus, and many people discounted him, and so when we think about Moses and we think about Elijah, we think about I mean, the symbolic is that Moses was the law, the Torah, the 5 books. He gave the law. And then Elijah was the prophet, foretold what was coming. So that's why these 2 guys are here, representing the law and the prophets, to show the disciples. That's the only reason why I think they're there, to help show the disciples. And they knew, because they knew the law and they knew the prophets. They knew who Elijah was. All right, so did everybody find Jude? It's kind of hard to find. Jude 1:9. Interesting story here. It's one of my biggest wonders. Who wants to read Jude 1:9? Okay, Ms. Coco. Oh man, what interesting. So Satan shows up. Here's something interesting. You may not know this, and I don't know much about it, but Satan had access to heaven. He could go up there and come back down. He'd go up there. And in Revelations, I don't know, Revelations 12, you can go there later. Michael, the archangel, finally has enough, or he gets word from God to kick Satan out, and he's never to come back again. Now, earlier on, so the question you might ask is, well, I thought he got kicked out early on before Adam and Eve. Well, I think he did. I know he did. But he still has some access to go to heaven. So Michael is the top angel of all. He's the warrior, the spiritual warrior. So him and Satan are having a conversation, and Satan asks him, where is Moses' body? I need to know. Where is it? Biggest question is, why is Satan asking for Moses' body? Because we know he died. You know, he died before going to the land of Canaan, but nobody knows where he's buried. Why? Well, part of it is he shows up right here in the Transfiguration. But why do you think? Any thoughts? So the other part, while you're thinking, the other part is Michael doesn't rebuke him. He doesn't, he already, at this time, I don't think he's kicked out of heaven yet till Revelations. But Michael could have destroyed him right there, but he didn't. He said, I'm going to let God rebuke you. Pretty interesting. I don't know why that's there. It's important. But anyway, why is Satan looking for Moses? What do you think? Just temple or right? That's what most people commentaries say, that Satan was trying, is always trying to divert off what's true. Just here's some water. It's 98% pure. Will you drink it? It's got a little bit of bad stuff in it, but it's 98% good. No, I want 100% pure. Satan just gets a little bit. He can change people, and he does. So he wants to divert and make a tabernacle out of Moses and who he was and what he did. It's not about Moses. So his body's hidden. Interesting. Okay. Got a few more minutes. Let's keep reading. So Moses, we're in verse 3, 17:3. Moses and Elijah appeared to them talking. Now verse 4, Peter, listen, listen. He sticks his foot somewhere. What does Peter say? He says, Lord, it is good to be here, and if you wish, let's build 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. What's wrong here? It's not about Moses. It's not about Elijah. I just brought him here to talk to you, Peter, and you're not listening. You want to build a tabernacle. You want to worship them here. Good old Peter, which is probably just like me or you, right? I'm not beating up Peter. I think we just got to get it. Verse 5, so and this is interesting, while Peter was still running his lips, God started speaking. And he said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him, hear him." In other words, listen, listen. Of course, when God spoke, they fell on their faces and were greatly afraid. Jesus touched them. I bet he had to help them up because it says he touched them. I think he had to help them up off their. They were probably prostrate, right, laying flat. He said, "Arise and do not be afraid." And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. Interesting story about the transfiguration and who's there. And Jesus brought Moses and Elijah there. And I'm sure they talked. Because in verse 3 it says, "And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them talking with him." What do you think was said? Any idea? Any thoughts? Any thoughts? Yeah. Peter was pretty excited. He wants to build some temples up there. I'm sure the other disciples said something. I mean, James or John probably said something too, but it doesn't say what they said. Maybe they were quiet. All right, we're going to pick up. So we talked about Moses because he's there. Let's talk about Elijah a second. Let's go to 2 Kings 2:11. 2 Kings 2:11. Oh, okay. That was quick. This is where Elijah goes up in heaven. How does he go up in heaven? In a chariot of fire. So let's start with verse 10. 2 Kings 2:10. We'll start there. 2 Kings 2:10. So remember the story you had. Elijah is about done. He's done a lot of things. Remember, he killed 450 prophets at the fire of Baal when he brought fire down on the watered down altar. And then he ran away, and because Jezebel was chasing him, King Ahaz, his wife Jezebel, most hated person in the Bible, was chasing him, and he ran. And God met him on the mountain, talked to him with a whirlwind and some other things and some lightning. But here, he's leaving. So, who wants to read 10 through 11? Okay. Okay, so here, that's where Elijah went up. So we have two people, Elijah who went up, who didn't die. We had Moses who did die, but we don't know where he's buried. And these two guys are with Peter, James, and John at the Transfiguration, talking to the disciples, because the disciples are going to be the rock. The church is going to be built. So we'll go to Acts in chapter 2. We read a couple weeks ago where Peter had a declaration and spoke. And my favorite verse of all times is Acts 2:21, when Peter says, "All those who call on the name of the Lord shall be saved." And that was the message. So your homework this week is for next week is be like Peter. What is the message of salvation? And how do you tell the unbeliever how to be saved? I think we know it, but better question is, how do we put it in words and tell people our story? All right, Brother Don.